Welcome, everyone, to Wholesale Change, the webcast and podcast from Distribution Strategy Group, where we provide thought leadership for wholesale change agents like you. Because if you are on this call, you probably are a wholesale change agent. My name is Ian Heller. I'll be your co-host today, along with my business partner, the Dean of Data, the Doctor of Distribution, Jonathan Bein, PhD. Proud to have him as my business partner. How are you today, Jonathan?
Well, Ian, it's getting thicker all the time.
Well, we've got a pretty good topic today. The real reason digital fails, it's not because CEOs are dinosaurs, right? So, I mean, we hear this a lot when we go out and talk to distribution companies. You talk to the e-commerce people, to the marketing people, and they say, well, we'd have a great website, but the old guy in the corner does not want to spend the money because, he still has his assistant print out his emails, and then he handwrites a reply and she replies by email. I actually had a boss like that one time.
Talking about my generation. It's somebody with our hair color or our hair quantity, right? That's what we're talking about. You
got a pretty full head of hair, man. I'm the one with the lack of follicles.
Fair enough.
But anyway, so here it is. Distributors are bad at digital because CEOs are unwilling to invest in e-commerce. I mean, you hear this all the time, right? Now, when you talk to CEOs, what do they say?
Well, there's a variety of things.
Right.
Sometimes there is still skepticism. It's like, well, this is a relationship business, right?
Right.
I don't know that our customers are ultimately going to be doing stuff on the web, and there's a real confirmation bias in that perspective.
Sure.
By
the way, if you don't have the ability to do it on the web, your customers definitely will not do it on the web.
Point taken. That confirms that bias.
That's right. Yeah. And I think, a lot of times, though, what I hear from CEOs is, look, we have spent millions of dollars on digital and we have not gotten the return. I have looked at business case after business case promising X amount of sales and Y amount of EBITDA, or at least gross profit, and we've got none of it. So I'm reluctant to continue to spend because, to me, it feels like throwing good money after bad.
Well, and we're hearing also from the suppliers further up in the channel, their dissatisfaction with how the distributor digital initiatives are performing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you talk to manufacturers, they will tell you over and over again, hey, I don't think my distributors are any good at digital. And we talked to a very large manufacturer recently, global manufacturer who primarily sells through distribution, who said, look, I know B2B distribution's a lot harder than consumer, but the distributor sites in the US are particularly bad compared to the European and Southeast Asian counterparts, right? Okay, so let's look at what we view as the real reasons that distributors are bad at e-commerce. So this is the truth from our perspective. We do work with a whole bunch of different distributors. I think, one of the first problems we see is that e-commerce groups and marketing departments define the wrong requirements up front. I have actually done a very good job in my career in a couple of places defining the wrong requirements and then building the wrong capabilities, right? And if you do that, you've just built the wrong thing. So it may be a brilliantly built website. It may work very slickly. It may do exactly what you wanted to do and do it very well. But if you define the requirements incorrectly up front, you get the wrong thing, right?
Yeah, and going further upstream, you build the wrong requirements because you have the wrong model of what this should be doing, right? So I think one of the examples you've given is somebody says, well, let's do the Grainger MRO style model for what an e-commerce site should be. Well, that works great for Grainger and similar companies. Doesn't work so well in construction. Doesn't work so well in other sectors. So having the right model is key to getting the right requirements, which is key to then building the right thing.
So when you say the right model, what do you mean?
Well, just again, what is the model? Is it like an MRO style model where I'm buying products? Is it an OEM style model where I'm specifying products that need to go and that are part of a bill of materials? Is it a construction style thing where I'm specifying products that need to go into a project? There are many different models, or at least there are several different models that one could choose from, and the wrong model will guarantee the bad results. Right?
Yeah, and I think there's sort of a paradox here to me, Jonathan, because the easier sites to build are just the simple transactional models where I put a bunch of SKUs in a store and people log in and they use their credit card, or maybe they buy an account if it's integrated with the ERP, and they close the transaction and you ship the product to them. I mean, that's the simple Grainger-like or Amazon-like business model. Those are much easier to build, but the reality is in the long term, they're much more vulnerable because they are more exposed to competition like Amazon and Grainger because they are so simple. And that's not really the complexity that distributors should see as an advantage, at least over time, because if you can do more complex transactions and you do things that are harder to execute online, then you're doing things that are less like those, what are relatively simple operationally websites like Amazon and Grainger.
Well, and yesterday in our 10X Tech Stack webcast, we talked about a case study related to order automation, sales order automation, where the distributor, it's actually a customer of ours, the distributor had orders that were 5 to 6 pages long.
Right.
Right. So that is not going to fit for an MRO style website. You know, that's a much more complex. If that's not a quick buy part of your website either, right? There are some things where reordering is the main operation you're doing, right? If you think about probably Jansan, which has a lot of, just for example, which has a lot of consumable component, reordering needs to be really easy. Specification, not so much. So
talk about unrealistic expectations. What do you mean by that?
Well, we see this in the context of they set unrealistic expectations for how much revenue needs to go through the shopping cart, through the website itself. And this goes back to this distinction between shopping and buying. Shopping is how people find, research, evaluate. Buying is how they order. 75 to maybe 90% of shopping is done online. Based on our data, you know, often around 10% of the orders go through the website. So setting an expectation that, you know, we've just deployed this website and we're going to be at 25% e-commerce revenue within 2 years is wildly unrealistic. And we've seen it again and again. When we do state of distributor e-commerce, we track how long the journey is from when the site got started to, you know, the revenue that they have now. Right. And we routinely see companies come out with wildly unrealistic expectations of how much you go through the shopping cart, as opposed to more broadly digital, right? They shop online, they buy through the shopping cart, they send email orders, they do e-procurement of some kind, they call their CSR. All these are fine. But this unrealistic expectation is rampant.
Yeah, I think we have covered this with various distributors over the years that, you know, the reality is that you can't just put a simple ROI model together that looks at what's being sold to the shopping cart and then base your success on that. Because B2B customers often are never going to place the order online because they are executing the order through their ERP and they are going to email a PO, or maybe they're going to call it in or whatever. That doesn't reduce the value out of the website. It just makes it harder to measure.
Right. And then it devolves to an attribution problem, right? You need to be able to attribute, you need to be able to give credit to your website for driving this order, even if it didn't go through the shopping cart. That's another longer discussion, but something many distributors are facing right now.
Okay, next, incomplete product data and poor search or other functionality. These are clearly related, and we've all seen it where you go to a distributor website or another website and you search for something and their search results seem to have no correlation to the terms that you put in. And sometimes that's a product data problem. Sometimes that's a search engine configuration problem. Sometimes it's just a bad search engine. But it's really frustrating for people who are used to Google. I mean, Google defines their search experience. After that, it's Amazon. And then they go to many other sites, and either for lack of data or bad configuration, whatever, they can't find what they're looking for. And the standard is now so high on being able to find what you're looking for that this is a fast way for people to exit your site, right?
100%. And it's a revenue prevention. It's a revenue, or was it sales prevention technique.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem is compounded when a customer comes to your site. They've previously bought the product that they're looking for, so they know you have it, right?
Right.
And they search for it by product name or SKU, and they can't find it, and it's crazy making. So in the old world of information retrieval, that's what's known as a recall problem. It's in there. So I search for something, I should get things that are in there that I'm searching for, and I should get only the things that are in there that I'm searching for. This is pretty easily remedied. There are better search engines. So if you've got a e-commerce platform and the search engine is not good, there are third-party search engines that will do a better job of indexing and figuring out, what needs to come up when you do a given type of search. But I think if we look at, this point in the prior one, the incomplete product data, poor search or other functionality, we need to look at the analog in the offline world, right? So Ian, what happens when I go into a branch and I can't get product data and I can't find the product that I want in the branch?
Well, I asked the person behind the counter.
Okay, what if that person doesn't know? And that occasionally happens, right?
They go get somebody else, but sometimes they can't find it at all.
Right. So that ends up being a sales prevention thing. And if it's routinely, I can't find information that I'm looking for in the branch setting, that's going to behave just like the online setting.
The standard on this is continuing to get higher because of new forms of search that are coming, like voice search and item recognition search. I mean, everybody's got a smartphone, it seems, these days, and there are multiple apps on there. And we covered several of these in our last NAW webinar in that technology series that we're doing, where we searched for an item in eBay and Home Depot and Alibaba and Amazon and somebody else. And we used the image search function, and it was pretty incredible. I mean, all the apps but one found the item. The irony was the one app that didn't match the item was Amazon, which is where I bought the item. But that's going to be a short-term issue for them because AI learns from its mistakes or its misses as well as its hits. And then once it learns, it never, ever forgets again. Okay, so you've got this item identification search coming. It actually works pretty well today. If you haven't tried it on your phone, you should. And you've got voice search coming too. Okay, now, how good does your product data have to be in order to enable search with AI tools? Because you not only have to have complete product data, it has to be arranged and set up in such a way that an AI layer of technology can take pixels out of an image and match it to product attributes, or take a WAV file, a sound file, and match elements of that sound file to specific product attributes. How good does your underlying data have to be? Well, really good, I would think. And you've got out there retailers and in some cases some B2B players who are doing that. Grainger's got voice search too, by the way, now. And
yeah, I think we've seen that
image search.
I'm sorry.
Image identification search. Grainger has image. I haven't tried it, but they've got image identification search.
Yeah, so we're at an innovator and early adopter stage of those two particular technologies, which means that, over the next 5 years, it doesn't mean everybody's going to have these things, but it means some material percentage of your competitors are going to have good functionality around item recognition and voice search. And so what that means is if we've gotten to data 1.0, which is the term I liken it to, the industry, data quality's come up in the last 3 or 4 years. As a lot of it is a result of industry initiatives, buying groups, co-ops, associations, other forms of collaboration. But that's just sort of data 1.0. We've got basic data, we've got a lot of it, but you're asking for like a whole another level of things, and that's gonna require yet another big step up from the industry.
I just thought of something.
Tell me.
Do you think it's fair to say that distributors are particularly disadvantaged when it comes to being motivated to invest in these AI search tools, because that's a shopping activity and they're measuring their websites on buying activity.
Brilliant. I love it. Could very well be.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're pointing your camera phone at something or reading or talking into it, that's shopping. You're not buying it yet. You're just looking for an item in many cases.
Yeah, you're right.
And so sorry, Jonathan, just to finish the train of thought, you
Mhm.
might point your camera at something, say, yeah, that's the thing that I need, and then take that data and route it through your ERP and do an EDI order or a punch out order or email order. And it never goes through the shopping cart. So the distributor's going, well, there's no point in investing in this website because we're not selling anything through it. And so they're not getting the product data up to speed because the ROI model is not picking up the benefits.
I think it's part of the broader phenomenon of not understanding the importance of shopping.
Yep.
That shopping, in my view, is more important than buying. You can't differentiate on buying unless you're Amazon and you've got one-click search.
Yeah.
And shopping is what's really the experience of shopping is what's going to define the customer experience on this whole thing. If it's a great shopping experience, they'll consider it a great site.
Let me ask you something, because I don't understand why this is, and you may not either, but every site that I go to, even if I have my credit card information stored, in the end, at the very least, I have to put in my little 3-digit code, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the back of the card, right? Every retailer, every experience online, every distributor, at the very least, even if they save all your information, you have to put that in, right? You agree?
Yes.
Not at Amazon. When you buy from Amazon, it's one-click purchasing. You don't put in anything. What is it that they do? I mean, I don't know the answer to this. I don't expect you to, but how do they do that? I mean, they must have some better data security practices or AI models or something, because it's the only site. And now we've got, a bunch of participants on the line. If you know of another site that does that, or if you know why Amazon can do that, or you want to take a guess, by all means, hit the Q&A button or chat with us and let us know what you think. But I've been wondering about that for a while, and are you aware of any other site where you can do that?
I'd have to think about it, but my initial inclination was the same as yours. They must feel uber confident in their security to the point where they can do that. Now, if I change the address, right, the shipping address, then I have to.
Fair enough.
Right.
But for an ordinary order.
For the default order, it's just really simple. Yeah.
Right. I don't know how they do that. Okay. Next, content is not personalized, which is a pretty big item, but the next one's even bigger, which is the most expensive channel to buy through. You want to give us your thoughts on that?
Why don't you take that one, Ian?
Okay, so content is not personalized. I mean, look, when I log into Amazon, they know better than I do what I'm interested in, right? So they know that I love motorcycles and I love photography as 2 examples. And so I always get offers on fantastic things that I absolutely have to have, even though I didn't know they existed a minute before I logged in. And that's just AI understanding your needs and preferences. If you haven't seen The Social Dilemma and you want to ruin a good night's sleep, then watch that movie and it'll tell you how they're using your data against you. And there's a saying that if the product is free, you're the product, right? And of course, this is a free webinar, so gotcha. But just kidding. But
look, a bunch of people just left the webinar. Why did you say that?
But the content is not personalized on most distributor websites, right? Everybody gets the same thing, and that's not really how you build stickiness. But I think a bigger issue is that the web channel is the most expensive channel to buy through. Customers are not dumb, and we all know that most distributors have this problem with people in sales and service giving away margin. From the customer's perspective, that means I'm going to call my sales or service person because I always get a better deal. I got a guy, right? And I call that person and I get a better deal. So, the reality is that customers will figure this out, and they're not going to go buy online if it's just a very expensive way to buy from you.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to the shopping versus buying thing, right? That they shop and then they call their guy or their gal.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Hey, I put this list together. Can you do me solid and give me some better pricing versus what I got when I logged into your website?
Now, let's linger for just a second on the content is not personalized, because I think that's another one that relates to what I want to call data 2.0. So great, you've got basic data for a large swath of your SKUs. Maybe you've enriched the core 10% of your SKUs that are 90% of your revenue. But really the next hurdle for the industry is to get to some kind of personalization. So I log in, I'm a procurement person, I should see different content than if I log in if I'm an ops person than if I log in if I'm a designer. That's just one simple example of personalization.
Right.
But the whole cross-sell reorder, that's a form of personalization. All that stuff is key in this next generation of data and creating a good customer experience. Just like what you said at Amazon, they know better what you want than you do. I mean, I was actually looking at the New York Times bestsellers today. Couldn't find what I wanted on the New York Times list. I typed New York Times bestsellers at Amazon, and it gives me exactly what I needed. So,
Yeah. Jason Hine of Bloomreach talks about this a lot, and he was on our show a few weeks ago. It'll be interesting to see, a couple of weeks from now, we've got the president of North America and the global CMO for Alibaba on here. We should ask him to give us some insights on how they use personalization. We'll squeeze them for proprietary information.
there you go.
Just kidding.
Everybody on the show will have to sign an NDA, but other than that,
And then we'll put it on the web.
yeah.
And it's on YouTube. Okay, the last thing is incomplete assortment call for price. This is absolutely lethal because if a customer goes through your website, let's say they're buying 5 items and they get 4 in their cart and the 5th one says call for price, which means by definition, you cannot buy it online. Then when are they going to come back to your website again? Never. Why would they, right? I mean, why would I come back to your website if I can't complete the order? Because when I go there, I wind up making the phone call anyway. I mean, between being the most expensive channel to buy through and not having a complete assortment or having call for prices, I mean, I would say 9 out of 10 distributors that we deal with have one of those or all of those issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, Dean and I are going through as part of this data distributor e-commerce research. We're looking at several hundred websites, and we're seeing a bunch of them that have this call for pricing. Now, it is a different thing to say, I'm going to show the price, but I can't take the order. That's already a different level because people could have a decent shopping experience. They just are not going to transact online.
I think that's bad too. I really do.
Okay. Well, we have a rare disagreement, Ian.
I mean, look, I guess it's better than not having it at all, but if you can't transact it online, it still is the same effect of disrupting your ability to execute the order, right? I mean,
but most of the orders aren't coming online anyhow, is the point, right?
Yeah, I get it, but why would I go back to your website if I have to call it? If you force me to make the call anyway, then I'm just going to call them in the first place. That's my point.
Maybe. I mean, it's the self-service is more efficient for me, and then I'll call my guy or gal.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to agree to disagree. I know, like for me, I'll go to Walmart.com sometimes, and they'll have items that they list online. They even show a price, and then they say available in store only. And I'm like, why? I mean, I literally have everything here. I know it's in my local store. I've got a price, and I can't place the order. What is the sense of that?
Maybe the pricing varies by geography, and they haven't figured out how to bring that online yet.
But it's priced. It shows me that it's
okay.
So I don't know. And we do have a couple of comments here. One is, how is that different from placing special orders in a branch? So I'm not sure I understand this. I think I probably should have caught this question when we were in the middle of the conversation. So sorry about that, Pete. How is this different from placing special orders in a branch? So is this like
so you see it on the shelf in the branch, you see the price, and then you go to the customer service rep and you either say, give me my price or give me a special price. And perhaps it's not priced in the branch, which occasionally happens, right? This is, you have ranted about this in the past, right?
Yeah, but fair enough. Look, there are things that you want a special order. I get it. Or you might want to order an extraordinary quantity. So let me complete the shopping cart and carve out an exception process so I can send that one item or those 2 items through an exception process electronically. Don't make me abandon the order. So I think, because in a branch, if I go in and say, I want 5 things and 3 of them are standard, 2 of them are custom, then the person at the counter is going to take care of that for me. I'm just saying, to the degree that it's possible, do that online. Yep. And then Dean is saying that the size of the distributor makes a difference on that, or the sector, probably in terms of call for price. I understand. Look, pricing online is really hard. There are lots of there are lots of challenges. So, and last is an incomplete value proposition because the online channel does not mirror the offline channels in terms of functionality. And I got to hop. I'm going to go to a call with Pros Software, a panel for them at their Outperform conference. So we're going to have a short show today. We did want to remind you, we do Wholesale Change every Wednesday. It's at 9 p.m. Pacific and noon Eastern. We're in the middle of doing 7 research reports and webinars for the National Association of Wholesaler Distributors. Please dial in for that. You can go to new.org and you'll see this series featured in their top rotating banner. You can see the contact information for me and for Jonathan on the right, and sign up for our content at distributionstrategy.com. Sorry to cut this short. It was a great conversation. Jonathan, as always, wonderful to work with you, my friend. And we'll see you next week on Wholesale Change. Thank you.